The morning sun had not fully risen when the noise began again at the dusty corner of the community square. Wooden tables were dragged into place. Old plastic chairs scraped against the ground. Laughter, loud and careless, filled the air. And in the middle of it all sat Mr. Ibu, leaning back like a king with nothing to lose. Every morning was the same. While other men carried hoes to their farms or opened their shops with sleepy eyes, Mr. Ibu walked proudly toward the gambling spot with his friends. They called themselves businessmen of luck. They believed that one big win would change everything, that one day the cards would bow before them and their lives would shine. But the cards never bowed. Instead, they lost. And when they lost, they found other ways to survive. Mr. Ibu was known in the community for trouble. If a hen went missing, people whispered his name. If someone complained that money had vanished from their small shop, eyes turned toward him. He and his friends had perfected the art of pretending. They lied with straight faces. They created fake investment schemes, promising to double people's savings in 1 month. They printed small papers with big words and walked from house to house, smiling like honest men. "Trust us," Mr. Ibu would say. "We are building something great." Many trusted him. Many regretted it. Yet for all his wickedness, there was something strangely charming about him. He spoke sweetly when he wanted to. He laughed easily. He made promises as if they were gifts wrapped in gold. It was on one of those bright afternoons that his life shifted. He had just lost badly at gambling. His pockets were empty. His friends had scattered, each looking for someone else to deceive. As he walked home through the narrow path that led past the community tap, he saw her. Susan stood there with a bucket balanced beside her. The sunlight kissed her skin softly. She was not dressed in expensive clothes, but there was dignity in the way she stood. Her eyes were sharp, thoughtful. She spoke little to the other girls at the tap, but when she did, her words were clear and intelligent. Mr. Ibu slowed down. He had seen many girls before. He had flirted with many. But Susan was different. There was a calmness around her, like a quiet river that hid its depth. He walked closer, clearing his throat. "Good afternoon," he said, trying to sound important. Susan looked at him. She knew him. Everyone did. His name carried stories. "Good afternoon," she replied politely. "You come here every day?" he asked, though he knew the answer. "Yes," she said. "Water doesn't fetch itself." He laughed loudly, but she did not laugh with him. Instead, she lifted her bucket gracefully and began to leave. Without thinking, he rushed forward. "Let me help you." She hesitated. Then she allowed him. That was how it started. The next day, he passed by again, and the next. Soon, he waited for her. He began to skip gambling sometimes just to see her. He brought small gifts, groundnuts, oranges, once even a small bottle of perfume he had stolen from a shop. Susan was intelligent. She knew he was not a good man. She had heard the whispers. But when he was with her, he behaved differently. He spoke of dreams. He talked about changing. He said he was tired of being misunderstood. "I can be better," he told her one evening as they sat under a tree. "You make me want to be better." She looked at him carefully. Words are easy. Change is hard. But love is strange. It grows even in places where it should not. They became friends. Then they became lovers. Mr. Ibu, who once spent his little money on gambling, now spent it on Susan. If she admired a dress, he found a way to buy it. If she mentioned hunger, he brought food. Sometimes that food came from stolen hens or pigs. Sometimes it came from lies told to desperate neighbors. He did not think about tomorrow. He only thought about keeping her smile. Then, one afternoon, while he was lying lazily in his small rented room, there was a knock. Susan entered quietly. She did not smile. "What is it?" he asked, sitting up. She stood still for a moment before speaking. "I am pregnant." The room felt smaller. For a second, he could not breathe. His mind raced. A child meant responsibility. Responsibility meant work. Work meant leaving his careless life behind. But his face did not show fear. He forced a smile. "That is good news," he said softly. Susan searched his eyes. She wanted excitement, reassurance, strength. Instead, she saw confusion hidden behind fake calmness. "You are not happy," she said. "I am," he replied quickly. "I just need time to think." She nodded slowly, believing him because she wanted to believe him. But fear had already planted itself deep in his heart. Days passed. He became distant. He avoided her. He stopped waiting at the tap. He began gambling more again, as if trying to escape his thoughts. One morning, before the sun rose, he packed his small bag. Without telling anyone, he left the community. He did not leave a note. He did not look back. Susan woke up that day with hope in her heart, only to learn that he was gone. The pain was sharp. The shame was heavier. People whispered again, but this time it was her name in their mouths. She cried alone, but she did not break. Mr. Ibu traveled to another town not too far from the old one. There, he told a new story about himself. He said he was hardworking. He said he was serious. He hid his past like a dirty cloth. After searching for days, he found work as a security guard in a small company. The uniform made him feel important. He stood at the gate proudly, saluting people as they entered. For a while, it seemed he might change, but character does not change easily. The salary was small. The work was boring. He watched others enjoy wealth while he stood outside in the sun. Jealousy grew inside him like a disease. One night, while his boss was away, he sneaked into his office. He had seen the gold wristwatch many times. It shone under the light, expensive and beautiful. He took it. He sold it quickly to a man in the market, not knowing that the man was a close friend of his boss. Months passed. The boss searched everywhere for the watch but found nothing. Then one evening, the boss visited his friend. As they talked, his eyes fell on the familiar gold wristwatch resting proudly on his friend's wrist. "Where did you get that?" he asked quietly. The friend laughed. "I bought it from your security guard some months ago." Silence filled the room. The next day, Mr. Ibu was arrested. He tried to lie. He tried to deny, but the truth stood firm. He was sent to prison for a week. Those 7 days were heavy. The walls were cold. The other prisoners mocked him. For the first time, he felt small. He thought about Susan. He wondered about the child, but pride would not let him return. When he was released, he could not stay in that town anymore. Shame followed him everywhere. So he returned to his old community quietly, hoping no one would notice. But the community never forgets. His landlord had been searching for him because of unpaid rent. Susan had searched too, but without success. When he arrived, he tried to hide. He avoided the main roads. He kept his head down. One afternoon, as he stepped out to buy food, he met his landlord face to face. "So, you are alive," the landlord said coldly. Mr. Ibu forced a smile. "I traveled for work." "Work that did not pay your rent?" The argument was short. The landlord demanded his money. The little he had left, he used it to settle part of the debt. Pride swallowed him again. Days passed quietly. Then one evening, there was a knock on his door. He opened it carelessly, expecting a neighbor, but there stood Susan. Beside her was a boy. The boy's eyes were sharp, intelligent, familiar. "Mr. Ibu," he whispered. She did not smile. "We need to talk." The boy stepped forward boldly. "Are you my father?" The question cut through him.
He looked at the child carefully. The resemblance was undeniable. The same shape of face, the same stubborn jaw. Susan spoke calmly. "This is your son." 12 years had passed. 12 years of absence. 12 years of silence. "I tried to find you," she continued, "but you disappeared. Now we are here." He stepped aside slowly, allowing them in. From that day, peace left his house. The boy was strong-willed. He had grown without a father and carried anger inside him. In school, he fought often. Teachers complained. He demanded things Mr. Ibu could not provide. Susan did not make it easy. She reminded him daily of his abandonment. She questioned every move. She demanded responsibility. She would say, "You ran before, run again if you can." But he could not run this time. Money was scarce. Jobs were difficult to find because his reputation had not improved. Neighbors avoided him. Some laughed secretly at his situation. The house was filled with arguments. Plates broke. Doors slammed. The boy shouted. Susan cried. Mr. Ibu felt trapped. He tried small businesses, but they failed. He borrowed money, but he could not repay it. Hunger visited their home often. Then one afternoon, while Susan was cooking, there was a knock on the door. She wiped her hands and went to open it. 2 women stood outside. Both were pregnant. "Who are you?" Susan asked. The women looked at each other before answering. "We are looking for Mr. Ibu. We are carrying his children." The pot inside the kitchen began to burn, forgotten. Susan felt her head spin, but she did not collapse. Instead, she stepped aside. "Come in," she said quietly. When Mr. Ibu returned home later that day, tired and frustrated, he sensed something unusual. The door was open. He stepped inside. Susan sat in the parlor. Beside her were the 2 pregnant women, and standing near the wall was his son, watching him and laughing. Silence swallowed the room. He looked from one face to another. His past had gathered in one place. Without saying a word, he turned and ran out of the house. Behind him, voices rose, and that was how his past finally caught him. This story is dedicated to Mr. John Okafor, a legend we will never forget, and may he keep resting.